Alrighty, how's it going, Mets and overall baseball fans? Thank you guys all so much for chiming in for the latest show here on the channel. The second one today. I know that this one is kind of last minute. I said it right as I was doing my post-game show after the Mets 9-2 loss today in their series finale to the Atlanta Braves. But I figured, you know what, especially with today being a day game to end that series against the Braves, I figured let's do a series preview today. That way that there's more longevity, especially for my viewers on replay, leading into tomorrow's game that starts around 6:45 p.m. Eastern Time. Game one of another four-game set against the NL East rival, this time in Philly against, of course, the Philadelphia Phillies. So we'll be breaking down everything that you guys should know about this series, my personal opinions on it, especially guys that stand out for the Mets, guys that stand out for the Phillies, and how I hope the Mets are going to fare and things that we need to be keeping an eye out, both positives and negatives. A lot to get into for this series preview show, and it will be prolonged. So for people on replay, this will probably go upwards of a half hour, maybe less, maybe more. But for people in the live stream, we'll probably be at minimum doing an hour today, and even potentially an hour and a half or more, all depending on how everyone is enjoying the show today. But we got a lot to break down. Like I said, series preview. I'm ready to put the last loss for the Mets in the back burner, focus on what's ahead. They are doing the exact same. They are still driving, I believe, to Philly as we speak, if they are not there already. So let's just focus on this Phillies series, shall we? I want to give a quick shout out to some people I see here in the chat. Thank you all so much for being here, and then we're going to get rolling. I see Sandy, great member on the channel. Let's see. Daniel, how's it going? Michael, Chris, Adam, Brawny, Jocelyn, Haim. Let's see. Scooby. Appreciate all you all chiming in. And like I said, folks, continue smashing that like and subscribe on. We get to 200 plus likes by the end of the show. It would always be appreciated. Thomas, great member. Thank you so much for chiming in as well, and everyone else. But we got a lot to break down for this series for sure. I'm very much looking forward to it. This is a series for the Mets. Again, another NL East rival, and this is the Mets are right in the heart as we speak of halfway through this 14-game stretch against their NL East rivals. It's absolutely nuts. They, of course, had their previous series against the Phillies at home. They won that series 2 games out of 3, including a combined no-hitter that I was freaking out about that you guys saw this past weekend. Then they just split this series against the Atlanta Braves, and now they look for at least at minimum a series split, if not a series victory in Philly starting tomorrow. But let's see. I see some comments. Subway Series is here, Worry. It's on like Donkey Kong. Absolutely. Yes, Derek, I put a donation in your post game yesterday. You didn't see it, and that's okay. But I did say, congrats to your Yankees. Guys, shout out to Derek, one of the best content creators out there. Good friend of mine. Shout out to you, buddy. We'll be talking soon. I definitely want to be talking about some stuff YouTube related, but hope you're doing well. I know your Yankees keep winning. It pains me a little bit, but again, it's always best when we see the two teams and why thriving together. It's been a lot of fun to watch. So congratulations on continued success. Congratulations for 25K subs in advance, because I know you're very close if you're not there already. So shout out to you, and good luck with the Yanks game tonight. I know it's going to be a good one. I know it already started too, but no less. Appreciate the comment, Derek. Hope you're doing well. Let's see this. I am very much dedicated to the Mets. That is true, Retro. Absolutely. Let's see. Lindor looking lost again. No, I think that's a bit of a fallacy. I'm going to debunk that the best I can here. And we'll be talking about Lindor plenty here in today's show. And again, thank you all so much for being here. I know that there aren't many people in here at the moment. But there's going to be a lot more viewers on replay because, like I said, this was more of a last-minute live stream. And Derek, no need to apologize. You didn't even need to do that. So I appreciate that donation. Hype in the chat to Derek. Again, fantastic content creator. Regardless of the fact that, yes, he covers the Yankees. I know that's a little tough pill to swallow. I'm sure you guys will love his content. One of the best in the biz. So thank you again for that, buddy. No worries. But guys, let's talk about it. 1 year as a member. Love to hear that, Thomas. Thank you so much for that. But let's talk about this series now, shall we? Because the Mets head to Philly tonight. They start their series tomorrow. And game one between the two, let's start with pitching matchups. Then we'll get into key position players. Then I'll start answering a lot of your questions. But game one is going to be Taijuan Walker on the bump versus Aaron Nola. And what I love about this is Taijuan Walker's only pitched in 2 games so far this season, both against the Phillies, and he has yet to give up anything. He has pitched 7 scoreless innings in total. He pitched 2 scoreless, 2 perfect innings in his first outing of the year. Then he went out. David Pearson came in while relief, did good in that game. Mets ended up losing because of the bullpen implosion earlier this year in Philly, but Taijuan went on the IL right after that, came back, and pitched a strong 5 scoreless most recently in the Mets series victory against the Phillies this past weekend. Taijuan on the bump has no wins, no losses yet, and has yet to give up an earned run. Facing off against a man that the Mets have had the upper hand on so far this year, that being in veteran right-hander Aaron Nola for the Phillies. Nola on the year is currently 1-3 with a 3.90 ERA at the time of recording this, but against the Phillies so far, in his first 2 starts, is 0-2 on the year. Yes, he has recorded those 2 losses and has a sub-6 ERA of 5.79 to be exact. This Phillies team, they are currently 11-13 on the year, and they are playing the Texas Rangers as we speak, as we are here in the live stream. So we'll see if they win or lose. They lost their first game of the 2-game set yesterday against the Rangers at home. So we'll see if they're either going to get swept or if they're going to salvage and split the series 1-1. Either way, though, the Mets have won both their series against the Phillies to start this year in Philly and at home, and now we're back in Philly. So I know the Phillies, especially in a 4-game stretch, they're going to want to do some damage, and rightfully so. And we'll see if the Mets can combat them the best they possibly can, like they have so far through their first 6 games matching up against each other. But game 2, of course, this Saturday between the Phillies and the Mets. That's going to be another big one. Pitching-wise, you got Mad Max Scherzer on the bump once again. He's 4-0 already on the season. Really should be 5-0 because the Mets won the game that they unfortunately were, Trevor May blew it in the 8th, and then they still came back in the 9th and had those 500 runs. But Scherzer didn't get the W because of that reason, because of May's lack of performance there. He is now going to be out for a minimum of 2 months. 2.5 months, I would probably say, Trevor May with his current injury, which really sucks. So wish him the best, that he heals up, gets 100% better. But going back to Mad Max, he's 4-0 on the year with a 2.61 ERA. But against the Phillies, through his first 2 starts against them, he knows Philly so well. He knows Citizens Bank so well. He's always been dominant there. He has a 2-0 win-loss record and a 4.09 ERA versus the Phillies. And that really comes because of his last outing, in which the Mets did win that game. They won 10-6, but he did give up a couple home runs to not just Kyle Schwarber, but he did also give up 1 bomb. I think it was to Bryce or it was someone else. Either way, though, he did give up at least three homers, if I'm not mistaken, and his most recent start this past week against the Phillies in their victory, and their series victory overall. But getting into it now, the game 3 matchup, which will be this, I believe, this Saturday. Scherzer will be pitching Friday. I'm thinking that today's Thursday already, so my apologies, folks. It is Wednesday night at the time of being live here. But game 3 of this series will be another key pitching matchup. Day game right around 4 or so p.m. Eastern time, and that's somewhat important, and I'll break down in a little bit as to why. Again, appreciate everybody chiming in. Continue smashing that like and subscribe button, folks. Always appreciate. Thank you all so much in advance. But if we look through game 3, we have Chris Bassett, Seabass, as we love to call him, on the mound. The Bass Hound, if you want to call him that too. Bassett is 3-2 on the year with a 2.61 ERA, coming off of another quality performance. Has looked very good all year long, outside of really one outing, in which that was against the San Francisco Giants, where he gave up 5 earned runs. But Bassett has yet to pitch against the Phillies so far this season, so this will be his first of many times playing Philly, not just for this year, but in the future, because he already said openly over the past day that he would love to be extended by the Mets, and he's been loving being with the Mets more than he expected, and I don't think that's a wrong comment by him. He's coming from the Oakland A's. You go from a completely small market type team to a completely large market, in the biggest market in the world, that being in New York City. So there's definitely a difference, definitely an adjustment, but he's been loving every second in the Mets, and has credited Buck and his teammates in the front office and Cohen as to why he would love to be here long term. So don't be surprised if Bassett does sign an extension with the Mets sooner rather than later. Hopefully in season, that would be great before we reach the offseason. But Bassett going up against Zach Eflin, and Zach Eflin, who has faced the Mets already. Eflin hasn't looked too great, however. He's 1-2 on the year with a 4.50 ERA, and he in only 1 outing so far against the Mets and 4.1 innings pitched. Did give up 6 runs total, 5 earned runs. So there was 1 run that was thanks to an error from the Phillies against the Mets. So Eflin, the Mets have had the upper hand on through the first outing. We'll see if he performs better the second time around against the team in Queens. And then game 4, and this is why I have a slight asterisk for you guys for Cookie Carrasco there, because we don't know for certain who's going to be pitching game 4 at the time of being live here. My assumption is that it'll be Cookie Carrasco. However, after doing the math, Cookie will be pitching on 4 days rest and not 5, should he pitch this Sunday. If you guys don't know, I will be in attendance for the series finale. Very excited for that. And I will do a post-game show probably a couple hours after the game once I'm back home from Philly, depending on the outcome of the Mets game, especially if, say, the Mets get blown out or really lose bad. There's a decent chance I will not cover it, because I'm not going to go out of my way if there isn't really much to talk about. But especially if it's a solid game for the Mets, which I'm fingers crossed hoping for that series finale, then stay tuned. There will be a post game as well for the series finale, like most of these games, if not all. but it just might be a couple hours later, not right after the game, because I'm actually going to be at the game. So I have to make sure that I get back home first, edit, do all that fun stuff. Like I did, as many of you guys know, when I was in DC for Scherzer's first start of the year, I streamed after that game. There was a little rain delay, and I got back home in time in a reasonable time after the Mets win and broke it down on a location outside of where I currently reside. So that was a lot of fun. Very excited to be at that game. Hope to meet a lot of you fellow Mets fans there. So look out. I'll be posting on the community tab and on Twitter like I usually do when I'll be going to the game and kind of around where I'll be sitting. So look out for the short schmuck. That is me, probably wearing a typical outfit that you guys have seen me worn in the past, if not, say, this one, for example. But I'm going to assume either Cookie Carrasco. Cookie, of course, had his best start of the season last night and the doubleheader sweep against the Atlanta Braves. He pitched 8 scoreless innings against those Atlanta Braves. Amazing stuff by Cookie. Talk about a bounce back after surrendering, 6-7 earned runs against the St. Louis Cardinals the previous 5 days. So Cookie, you could tell that game was more of a fluke for him. He's very much the Cookie of old once again in the prime of his career to a certain extent. And he's in Mets number 4, number 5 starter, which is crazy. But should it be Cookie's 2-1 on the year with a 3.30 ERA? But if it's not Carrasco, someone that I think very well has a good chance, would be David Pearson. Because yes, David would be on short rest too, because he pitched the day game of the doubleheader, and that would be a 4 days rest for him. But Pearson is also not a mainstay currently in this rotation. He is that guy who the Mets can handle throwing out there maybe on 1 day's less rest, and something in any situation he can handle. He pitched 4 scoreless without a problem, 4 strong innings last time in Philly to start the year when Taijuan Walker was injured after 2 innings pitched beautifully. David looked really good, so wouldn't be surprised if he potentially pitches this Sunday should it not be Carrasco. But again, that is still a to-be-determined situation. Shout out everybody in the chat. Appreciate you guys chiming in. Like I said, I'm breaking down everything that there is to know about this series. So if you guys want to start from the beginning, I would say go back to the beginning of the stream. Or if you want to be here now live or replay, of course, I always appreciate that too. But matching up against Cookie or Peterson potentially is the dominant southpaw, at least was dominant in his first year where he broke out last year, and Ranger Suarez. Ranger Suarez reminds me quite a bit of Nestor Cortez. They're relievers / starters that have been stretched out, have really developed themselves well over the past year. Suarez, who had a dominant 2021 season, has not been off to the same pace so far this year. And against the Mets, he was again in a pitch count limit, so he was short in how long he could go deep into the game. But no less, Suarez is 2-0 on the year with a 4.63 ERA at the time I recorded this, and only 2.2 innings pitched, did surrender 3 earned runs against the Mets. And I do believe the Mets won that game, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to double check. Either way, though, Suarez did not go deep in that one. He will go deeper more than likely in this Sunday matchup because he won't have nearly as much of a pitch count limitation. But still, the fact that the Mets were able to jump on a southpaw of his capability was huge because they struggled mightily against Suarez last season. And we'll see what type of Ranger Suarez we will get this Sunday. But that's really all you need to know about the pitching matchups, guys. This is going to be an awesome one. The Mets do avoid Zach Wheeler because he's pitching tonight as we speak right now. But they will be matching up against Nola, Gibson, Eflin, and Suarez. And that is always important. And I actually don't even know if I mentioned Gibson. So if I didn't, I apologize. Let me backtrack quickly. Gibson is going up against Scherzer. I'm forgetting if I did or not. But Gibson has a 2-1 win-loss record with a 2.93 ERA for the veteran right-hander who was acquired at the trade deadline by the Texas Rangers to the Philadelphia Phillies last year, in which he's pitched pretty well for them. But this year, against the Mets in 4.1 innings pitched, only 1 outing, he did not surrender 1 earned run. He gave up a run, but it was because of an error. Again, that poor defense from the Phillies will tend to happen. You saw that not just with him, but also with Eflin, as we discussed too. But Gibson has had solid numbers so far against the Mets since becoming a Philadelphia Philly. He will be in that Friday matchup with Mad Max Scherzer, and I do believe that is going to be game 2. Yes. So pitching-wise, that is truly the breakdown. There isn't much more that needs to be said. I think that there's a solid chance that might be David Pearson on Sunday. However, I would love it if it was Cookie, but if they really want to make sure that Cookie gets a proper 5 days rest, then that would warrant having David Pearson, Trevor Williams, guys that will be innings eaters. But I would much prefer David there, especially Williams just pitched today, had another bad outing. Innings eater, gave up 3 earned runs and 3.2 innings pitched today for the Mets in the loss and had 6 strikeouts, which isn't terrible. But again, not necessarily something that is great or lovely either, as an understatement. But talking about offensively now, what are the players to watch in this series, right? Because there are a lot of them. And don't get me wrong, Pete Alonso, I wanted to put on this list so bad. You guys should all be watching Pete Alonso, not just because he's been having a very good start to the season, but because he's been absolutely raking against these Phillies in these 2 matchups. He has tremendous numbers in most of these pitching matchups in this 4-game set. But The reason why I don't have Alonso here is for the sole purpose that I picked him so many times through these series previews. I just want to give it a break. So don't get me wrong. If he thrives, as he absolutely should, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if others. Starling Marte has great numbers against the Philadelphia Phillies. Eduardo Escobar has some solid numbers. I mean, there are so many Mets hitters that you could choose. I specifically went with these three based on numbers and also just for the sake of also picking them. But Brandon Nimmo, it's so hard not to pick Nimmo because Nimmo has all the reason in the world to be thriving here because Nimmo so far hasn't just had a great start this season, one of the best leadoff hitters in all baseball, but especially when looking at these pitching matchups in particular, 3 out of the 4 pitchers is where it stands out for him because he has a 900 OPS against Aaron Nola in his career in 44 plate appearances. Against Kyle Gibson, he has a 1,000 OPS and 10 at-bats. Again, small sample size would be that, again, but still important. And Ranger Suarez, he has a roughly 1,000, but actually a 985 OPS and 10 at-bats or plate appearances, whichever one against Suarez and the Phillies in his career. So Eflin, he doesn't have good numbers against, but Gibson, Nola, and Suarez in the small sample sizes has thrived unbelievably well against. So that's great to see. And what's really fun too, and I'm going to mention this with these 3 guys because it's important. This is 2 days where you have a positive, 2 days where you have a negative in the sense that we're going to have 2 night games and 2 day games. Let's see. And Thomas, I will definitely text you after the game. We'll make that happen after the show. So don't worry about that. I'll talk to you in a little bit. But day game wise, there are some Mets that are far better than others. And night game wise, there's some Mets that are far better than others too. But for Nimmo's sake, Nimmo, 1, he has tremendous numbers in Citizens Bank Park. He has over 1,000 OPS in the 3-game set from earlier this year. But 2, night games so far this season for Nimmo and 51 at-bats, he has a 294 average and an 890 OPS. So especially games 1 and 2, you love the odds of him doing well in those night games. But in day games, Nimmo is in a lot of ways the polar opposite. It's smaller sample size, it'd be that. But in 28 plate appearances this season, Brandon Nimmo only has a 167 average, a 619 OPS because he's an on-base machine. I'm not surprised by that. But quite the polar opposite in numbers between day and night games. And the reason why I bring this up is because this holds true a lot, not just with Nimmo, but especially with Francisco Lindor. And Lindor, I chose him because, 1, he's been in a bit of a slump, if you want to call that lately, to not have a hit in this previous series against the Braves, but has been criminally unlucky. So many balls fell short of the warning track for the past couple of series for him that should have been out. Lindor, again, I think he's been playing great so far this season. A great hot start. Cooled off a bit that we've seen of recent, but I do think that a 4-game set at a hitter's park like Citizens Bank is going to work unbelievably well for the switch hitter phenom in Francisco Lindor, because Lindor's numbers, he has a couple pitchers that stand out to him in the series, and it starts with Aaron Nola. He has an 841 OPS and 17 at-bats against. And Kyle Gibson, he has a 768 OPS and 51 at-bats or plate appearances. Either one. I might have got them confused. But day games, this is the interesting thing. The fact that we have 2 day games in this series will hold true for Francisco Lindor, because Francisco Lindor is an absolute menace this season when playing in day games. So for both the Saturday, which is a 4 o'clock day game start, I would say that's a day game. That probably qualifies as that, right? It's not a night game. And then you also have the 1 o'clock or so start, that being on Sunday. And for those, look out for Lindor, especially because at these day games thus far, in a total of 53 at-bats, he has a 326 average and over 1,000 OPS. But night games, and this has been Lindor's kryptonite, and this goes in hand with, 1, the dead end ball, because the ball's not flying out, especially on cold, chilly nights. Earlier in the year, Lindor, I'm not surprised that he isn't thriving, especially when it's cooler out, based on the weather and the night. 62 play appearances for Lindor here in night games so far this season. He only is batting a .185 with a 478 OPS. So we're talking a 500-plus difference in his OPS, depending on if he plays in day or night games. I mean, that's ridiculous. That is a crazy split. Let's be honest here. And that tells you that, yes, maybe Lindor isn't going to have the best first couple games in this series. He may, however, in Citizens Bank against these Phillies. But if there's one thing to bank on, it's that day games, Lindor has been a lock more often than not. And that is something that I'm looking for specifically in this series. Along with him, of course, is trying to get out of the little schneid that he has been in as of late. That's something also to keep in mind. But these splits are just crazy to me. The fact that you can be so polar opposite in a lot of ways based on conditions, I guess I'm not too surprised, but just they are drastic. You know what I mean? It's not even like that. Say Lindor had like a 700 OPS during a day game and he has, 1,000 OPS during night games. No, he has just under 1,100 OPS in day games so far this season. And under a 500 OPS in night games. That's a crazy cut. That's a completely cut in half. So Lindor, day games, I'm liking those odds, and I appreciate the fact that the Mets have 2 day games in this one for the likes of someone like him and others. But the final man to talk about outside of Alonso, outside of Marte, outside of Escobar, like I said, many Mets hitters have thrived, not just in Citizens Bank Park. They've thrived already so far against the Phillies so far this season, and we shouldn't be surprised at all if all of them, if not most, thrive in this 4-game set. But Jeff McNeil, not just being an amazing hot hitter so far this year for the Mets, back to the normal Jeff McNeil of old. McNeil's numbers are really, really solid against these Phillies. Aaron Nola, especially 801 OPS and 38 plate appearances. Kyle Gibson, a 1,250 OPS and 8 plate appearances. Again, small sample size throughout his career. And Eflin, 890 OPS and 27 plate appearances. His one really, the biggest problem for him out of these has been Ranger Suarez. Doesn't have much good numbers in a small sample size. Same thing with Lindor when looking at Eflin and Suarez as well. But McNeil in his day games and 43 play appearances this season has a 237 average and 615 OPS. In night games and 48 plate appearances, talk about this difference. A 444 average. Ridiculous. And a over 1,000 OPS. 1,140 to be exact. 46, I should say. So similar to Lindor, day and night games, they make a drastic difference. And that holds true as well here for Jeff McNeil and the New York Mets. So I'm very excited to see how they're going to do. As I broke down the numbers again, this season at least, these guys have stood out against the Phillies. Going back to Nimmo, a 318 average, 2 home runs, 5 runs scored, and only 6 games so far against these Phillies. Francisco Lindor, just under 300 average and 4 runs scored in 6 games against the Phillies this season. And McNeil, 353 average, 4 RBIs in 6 games against the Phillies. I mean, how can you go wrong? They're just so easy to pick from. And like I said, Alonso, Marte, and others, all the right in the world to see them thrive. But these are just the 3 that stood out to me. And I would have loved to give the benefit of the doubt to, say, the likes of a Travis Jankowski or the likes of Dom Smith, but I just don't know how much playing time they're going to get in this series. Same thing with Mark Cannon. For those reasons, that's why I did not choose them. I learned that the hard way because I did choose Dom Smith as a guy to watch during the Braves series, but Dom only played in one of the games. He only started in one of the games, and that kind of bothered me. I thought Dom was deserving of getting more playing time. He had a 2 RBI double early in one of the games yesterday, part of the doubleheader sweep for the Mets over the Braves. I mean, he's had some pinch hits, but I would have liked to see more. And he has good numbers against the Phillies, but I just don't know how much playing time he's going to get. So for that reason, same thing with Canada to a certain extent. And Jankowski, being a former Philly, I know he will thrive against them and take full advantage of that small ball mentality against a piss poor infield that I know that he can try to take advantage of. Would say a bunt single to get on first, maybe steal a bag and get a run scored like he did in that doubleheader game 1 yesterday. I fully expect it to happen. I just don't know how much playing time they're going to get. So again, for those reasons, that's why I have them out. Let's see, Jameson, I hope you're feeling better, my friend. I know you're still in the hospital. So again, hope everything is going to continue in the right direction for you, buddy. Hope you have a great rest of your night. And again, I appreciate everybody being in here. For everybody just chiming in for this series preview, continue smashing that like and subscribe button, folks. A lot of you guys will be watching this on replay as expected. Like I said, I really just want to get this out now, even though it's more so last minute. I know a lot of you guys didn't get the notifications for it, but I just felt it was important with the game starting tomorrow at 6:45 p.m. I know that naturally when you get through the first game of the series, or at least when it starts, naturally you don't care about the series preview because the series is now beginning, right? So if I can get as much longevity for this, I will do exactly that. And that's why we're talking. But before I get close to cutting things off for people on replay, let's talk about the Philadelphia Phillies and what guys stand out. And I mean, need I say more? It's so easy pickings, and it's going to be like that probably for the majority of the season. You always have to pick along the lines of these 3 other than JT Realmuto. And of course, the last series preview I did with the Phillies, I brought up Odubel Herrera, and he did have a good game against the Mets. And that one good game is when they beat the Mets in Citi Field most recently, and that 4-1 loss for the Mets, even though that they won the series. But Kyle Schwarber, got to talk about Schwarber. Why do you have to talk about Schwarber? Well, he just hit 2 piss missiles against Max Scherzer the other night over this past weekend and the 10-6 loss to the Mets. Schwarber have that low average, but he still has a high on base, and he's raking like no tomorrow, and he has been the biggest Mets killer in all of baseball, simply put. He is one of the most historic Mets killers in all their Mets history, and that is saying a lot. He has already hit a tremendous amount of home runs against the Mets over this past calendar year, but Schwarber this season alone has 3 home runs, 6 RBIs in 4 games against the Mets, which is nuts. But in his career, as you guys see down here in the little text, because you don't want to have it too blown up, a 320 average, a 1,154 OPS, 16 home runs, 32 RBIs, and only 36 games. Almost an RBI game pace for the big, hefty lefty slugger, that being and Kyle Schwarber, who plays DH and in the corner outfield. He's going to be a nemesis. I just need to make sure that I hope at least that the Mets are very wary pitching against him. Even Mad Max, I know Max loves to be aggressive, but especially if Schwarber is locked in and on, it's not worth it. I say give him the Bonds treatment if you really need to. Walk him every now and then. I think that is better off than potentially risking this man just hitting bombs that he has done so famously well the past year plus against our New York Mets. But not just Schwarber, Bryce Harper. Bryce hasn't had a good start against the Mets this year. He's only batting right around $140 or so. He has 2 home runs and 2 RBIs and solo shots, but Bryce hasn't done much. But you can never count out Bryce Harper. When you're the reigning NL MVP, you have to always consider him. He's in his hitter's park at home, comfortable with Citizens Bank. Don't be surprised if he has a strong series. A guy you always have to keep an eye out for. He's always done well against the Mets in his career. So even though he's had a quote-unquote slow start against the Mets through their first 2 series this year, doesn't change the fact of who Bryce Harper is and why we should not underestimate him. And Nick Castellanos. Nick Castellanos is batting right around at 261 or so against the Mets through the first 6 games. A couple RBIs, nothing crazy. But Castellanos, again, he is one of those Phillies hitters that has actually been one of the better ones against the Mets, because the Mets have carved up the Phillies hitters a lot. The Phillies are either getting a boatload of runs or they're getting nothing. There really hasn't been much of it in between as they played the Mets for the first 6 games against each other this season. And guys, I see a bunch of comments. I'll be addressing them soon. Thank you all so much for that. But in a nutshell, this is going to be a very heated series for the Mets. I think what I'm looking out for a lot too is, let's not forget, Buck Showalter just got suspended a game, and Lopez got suspended 3 games. Not that he's not with the Mets anymore right now, but still, because of hitting the Phillies after the Mets got hit earlier in that game. The Phillies lead the league in hitting batters. They've done it more than any other team in baseball. And the Mets lead the league in being hit by pitches. They've already been hit a bunch of times from the Phillies. This is a series that has potential to get heated. Not like the series that we just had with the Braves. There wasn't really much animosity as there was just, intense games between the two clubs. No, it's always a bloodbath against this Phillies club. It's always like that, especially in Citizens Bank Park. And how the previous series ended, I fully expect there to be a lot of animosity. Rhys Hoskins will be in the heart of it, even if Rhys goes 0 for 4, which is common with that schmuck. He's the biggest crybaby in baseball. You can't tell me otherwise. He will be in the heart of it. Bryce, Schwarber, Castellanos, quite the colorful personalities. All guys that will share their open and honest opinion, as will the Mets, led by Mad Max Scherzer, who just got kicked out of one of the games over this series against the Braves for arguing balls and strikes out of the dugout, among many other Mets. So this series, I have my concerns when it comes to the animosity, the aggressiveness type level. I think that there's going to be a lot of that. I don't wish hit by pitches on anyone. I pray it doesn't happen. But boy, oh boy, would I not be surprised in the slightest should something transpire and we see ourselves another St. Louis Cardinals incident. Again, I don't wish it. I hope it doesn't happen. All I know is that this is a Phillies team that is going to be aggressive, and this is a Mets team that is by no means going to back down the same way they haven't backed down from anyone all year long. So got to keep an eye. This is going to be a heated one. Obviously, as a Mets fan, at minimum, I want a series split, just like what happened with the Braves. Best, I, of course, would like a series victory. I don't expect a series sweep. I got to be honest. But I do, however, really hope the Mets can come out and win 3 or 4. That would be tremendous. Make another statement, okay? You made statements twice already against the Phillies in 2 separate series, both home and away. Let's do it again, okay? Take as much advantage of opportunities as possible. This is a better Mets team than what the Phillies are right now. And even though that the Phillies, again, they will have their rides for sure. The Mets just need to, again, play that small ball, grind out at bats, and get better with runners in scoring position. Because as of late, the Mets have been pretty inconsistent, even with the dead end ball and there being the shift and all these things, especially with the Mets bases juiced. And the Mets have been getting guys on base almost every single inning. It's felt like every single game, but it hasn't resulted in runs every single one, especially like today. They just got shut down and did not have enough offensively, even though that they hit a bunch. And the Mets need to make sure that they don't find themselves in another predicament. Say you get a strong start from Scherzer, got to make sure you back him up with runs. I know that this is, a normal thing to say, and us Mets fans are very well aware of the lack of run support the Mets are one of the best offenses in baseball right now. And I hope that continues. This is a Phillies team that you should take advantage of their outfield defense. Take advantage, especially if Alec Boehm is in the infield. Try to get him in his head again like you did in the first series in Philly, even though that, yes, with the bat, he has been performing pretty well, and the glove hasn't been nearly as bad of recent. Either way, just take advantage of the opportunities that present themselves. That's what the best teams in baseball do. That's what the Braves did today, especially against the Mets. That's what the Mets did, sweeping the doubleheader against the Braves yesterday. So all these things to keep in mind, but simply put, this will be a massive series for the Mets before they round things out for this 4-game set against rivals with the Nationals. This is going to be a big series. This series can dictate a lot early on in the year, especially when it comes to momentum, motivation, all these things. All I know is that the New York Mets, I absolutely hope and I expect them to win a minimum of 2 games in this series. So worst case scenario, if they lose 3 or 4, or God forbid get swept, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's early in the year. I'm not going to be freaking out too much, but it's definitely not something I'll be happy about. This is a good team, a great team. It'd be that they have a strong pitching staff. I love the rotation. I love who they have matching up in this 4-game set, other than we don't know for certain who will be pitching Sunday, and we all have to be keeping our eyes. This is going to be a crazy matchup, and I cannot wait to be there this Sunday. So for people on replay, this is where I'll be cutting things off. I hope you guys enjoyed this series preview. Hope we broke down everything that you should probably know about this one. So let me know in the comments below. I know a lot of you guys are watching a replay. How do you feel about this series 4-game set against the Philadelphia Phillies, and which players do you think will stand out the most for both teams? Not just the Mets, but for the Phillies too. Which guys are you keeping a close eye on in particular that you expect to ball out in this 4-game set? Make sure to let me know. For people in the live stream, I'm going to start answering all your comments and concerns now. But again, for people on replay, thank you so much for watching. Smash that like and subscribe button, and I'll talk to you again real soon.